I look for those last couple of hours on the day before to be nice and tight, very close to the pivot point. Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to teach you how I use MarketSmith to identify winning trades. We're going to be going through a stock that I am trading currently, still have an open position in it. It's a VCP setup. It's DASH. Dash is the ticker. So I'm going to be showing you the fundamental criteria that I'm looking for, that I use MarketSmith to do, and then also the technical setup as well. So you're going to learn both about the fundamental criteria, what am I actually looking for on MarketSmith, and then also identifying the pivot point and the stop loss placement. So where am I looking to enter the position once I've done this analysis? How am I looking to control that risk with the initial stop loss placement as well? So MarketSmith are the sponsor of this video. If you're interested, there's a $20 trial in the link and the description. And with all of that being said, guys, let's get into improving your trading. So I've got MarketSmith loaded up here. I've got DoorDash, ticker Dash for this one. And we're going to just briefly start off on the daily chart before we move to the weekly chart for the fundamentals and then onto the hourly chart for the technicals. I just want to outline the pattern that I've traded. So I was actually taking a breakout through this pivot point in here, which is 194.21 is the exact pivot point. My stop loss initially was placed down here, which is 188.93. I'll be showing you this in more detail on the hourly chart. But you can see this VCP setup, contraction 1, contraction 2, contraction 3 with a nice shakeout, then contraction number 4. Price volatility is diminishing from left to right. Look at that volume also coming in as well. We'll be touching on that a little bit later. You can see the volume just drying up on these declines, which is great to see. So from an overall technical perspective, you're going to see the VCP when we start drilling into it a little bit more. I want to start this video off with the fundamentals that I'm looking for. So retail internet 73 out of 197. That's okay for the industry group trend. I like to see that management own at least a couple of %, which we can see there. I like to see that the fund ownership is accelerating, which we can see here, 328 to 466. Higher quality fund invested as well as also preferable. The relative strength line is turning up, and RS preferably in the 80s, getting into the 90s is good to see. And if there aren't any earnings coming through, I really like to see that there's big sales there. So you can see if we took an average here for the last 8 quarters of sales, okay, it's coming out at plus 200%. So there's massive sales coming through here. So remember, if there aren't any earnings, preferably you want triple digit sales consistently for numerous quarters. When you take an aggregate of that, preferably you'd like them all in the triple digit range. I won't touch on all of these fundamentals to keep this video a little bit shorter. I did a very detailed video, okay, which is the 13 fundamentals that I focus on. Search the channel and you'll find that. I'll put a link down below to it if you're interested. That's a much more detailed overview for the fundamentals. So I'm looking here on the daily chart before we go down to our hourly, and I can see it's been relatively new in terms of its IPO day, kind of a really volatile kind of setup in here, very choppy. But as we move from left to right, okay, this is where everything begins to calm down. There's a bit of a base that forms in here, okay, you can see that we have this initial base and then we're breaking out and we're in the context of the phase 2 trending up here above the 50-day moving average. So as I was saying a little bit earlier on in the video, contraction 1, contraction 2, contraction 3 acts as a shakeout, holds the 50-day, reverses, and then we start getting nice and tight over here. So this is where I'm targeting my entry because I'm looking for that low risk pivot point. I can take those asymmetric risk versus reward trades. So let's start drilling down now onto the 60-minute time frame. So the pivot point that I was using is 194.21. So that's coming across here, just like this. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at, and then the last bar that I could see is that bar in there, and then I got triggered on the open coming through here. So this here is my entry, so I'm just going to write E for you so you know that this is my entry point. I know that's a very bad E, but this is my entry point. So what I actually look for here, this is the hourly time frame. I look for those last couple of hours on the day before to be nice and tight, very close to the pivot point. I like to use a marathon runner analogy. So the marathon runner is starting as close as possible to the starting line, aka the pivot point. And what I also like to do is assess my risk. So my stop loss was placed down here at 188.93, which is around 3%, 3.5% risk, and it's a nice technical area of support as well. So we can see we have a low in here, a low in here, a low in here, and the low before the pivot point as well. So it's a nice technical area of support. Maybe if you wanted to go a little bit wider, you could place it underneath this low, but for me it was unnecessary. I use this low in here, and as I said, was triggered on here in the first hour, a little bit choppy, but then we hold the pivot point and then we start accelerating like this. But you can see if I just start zooming back on our, or not zooming back, you know what I mean, if we start looking over here to the left hand side of our chart, you can see some of the shakeouts. Now this is the type of behavior you want to look for on the shakeout. So whenever you have this shakeout, you want to make sure there's a strong close. So the close is here, the close is here, the close is here. These are bars instead of candlesticks, obviously, but then you can see bullish reversal, and generally speaking a bullish reversal in here as well. So each time we've had that flush down, willing buyers have been ready to step in, shaking out weak hands. A lot of stop losses would have been triggered, weak hands are removed, strong hands come in, and then you can see, I'm just going to draw a big box around here, then you can see this is where price starts to tighten up and becomes actionable. So then you're looking for, okay, when is there no more water left in that wet towel, if you like that analogy for water and supply? When is there no more weight on the supply side of our scale? So then we can get those explosive moves through the pivot points and look to create those asymmetric risk versus reward trades. So that is how I use MarketSmith to help identify fantastic, fundamentally strong stocks, whether that be the massive sales coming through, preferably with like the big earnings, the big sales, all the growth characteristics, high quality funds, fund ownership accelerating quarter-over-quarter basis, track record of earnings per share growth as well. But with DoorDash here especially, it was all about having those triple digit sales. Still long this stock, acting superbly well.